working on an answer, find, and shade worksheet that's covering multiplying and dividing by multiples of 10. And if you didn't know, multiples of 10 are like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 120, 300, 3,000, 4,000, 4,500,000. Basically, it's anything that ends in a zero. We're going to be working on multiplying and dividing by multiples of 10. And it says right here, it says round all answers to the nearest whole number. And the nearest whole number would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12, 15. Basically, it's anything without a decimal. So if I gave you an answer of 3.63, you would say that is approximately or about 4. So you would estimate it or round it to the nearest whole number. And this worksheet is a level 2 worksheet. If you can do it on your own, you don't have to listen to me. You can work on the worksheet by yourself. But if you need help, I am here for you. And by the way, I'm not going to do all the problems on this worksheet, but I will cover enough of them that I think you can do the rest of the worksheet on your own. So let's get started. Problem number 1. Problem 1 says 412 and 81 hundredths, or 412.81, times 100. 412.81 times 100. And all you need to do when you're multiplying by 100 is just count the zeros, and you can see we have 1, 2, and for every zero you see, you just move the decimal that amount of spaces. And the question is it to the right or to the left? And since we're multiplying, we want to make the number bigger, so it has to be to the right. So here's the decimal right here, and we just go 1, 2 spaces, because we have 1, 2 zeros. So our answer is 41,281. And that's all you need to do when you're multiplying by multiples of 10. You count the zeros and you move the decimal to the right for each zero you have. And we had 2, so we moved the decimal 2 spaces. Now, some of you might have learned that you just count the zeros and add zeros to the end of the answer. Well, that's a yes and a no, and I'll show you an example where this does not work. If I gave you a problem like 4.6 times 10, and as you can see, you have 1 0. If you just add a 0 to 4.6, you basically have done nothing. This is the same answer as here. So the best way to solve these problems is to move the decimal. Don't just add a 0. It doesn't always work. But if we move the decimal 1 space for that 0, then we get 46, which is the correct answer. Don't just be thinking add a 0 and you're done. Move the decimal. So the answer for problem number 1 is 41,281. So I'm going to write 41,281. And I come down here and I look for 41,281. And I can see it right there, 41,281. And so that tells us to go look for the letter N in the picture and shade in all the N's. I'm looking for an N, an N, an N, 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 N. Oh, there's one right there. So you would shade an N right here. And most likely, or actually definitely, there's more than one, so you have to find all the N's and shade them in. And you do that for every single problem. Let's move on to problem number 2. Well, problem number 2 says 16,584 and 27 hundredths divided by 1,000. So this time we're dividing, not multiplying, which means we're going to make the numbers smaller. So let's move over to our little piece of paper here. And we said we have 16,584 hundredths divided by 1,000. We first count how many zeros we have. We have 1, 2, 3. So that tells us we need to move the decimal 3 spaces. Now the question is it to the right or is it to the left? And since we're dividing, we're going to make the number smaller. So it tells us we need to move the decimal to the left. 1, 2, 3. So the decimal now goes right there because we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. The new answer is 16.58427, but the directions told us to round all answers to the nearest whole number, which the whole number is right here. We just ask ourselves, is 16.58427 closer to 16 or is it closer to 17? And hopefully you know how to round, and you should know that this is closer to 17. Over here on our sheet, we will write an answer of 17. And we'd come down here and find 17 in our little box, which is CC for 17. And we'd come back up here in our picture and we'd find all the CCs and shade them in. There's one right there, CC, CC, I see you. So we would shade this one in, and we do that for all the CCs we find. Let's do 2 more of these. And then I'll skip ahead a little bit and cover some of the more difficult ones. So let's look at problem number 3. Problem number 3 is a division problem again. It says 50,473 divided by 10. Now this one's a little trickier because there is no decimal. But just remember this saying, if the decimal is not in sight, it is on the right. The decimal is right there. It is on the right. Let's come over to our other piece of paper, and we have 50,473 divided by 10. And we just said the decimal is on the right, so it must be right there. And we have 1 0, which tells us to move the decimal 1 space to the left to make it smaller. So our new answer is 5047.3. And again, we have to round to the nearest whole number. And since this is a 3, this tells us that this is approximately 5,047. And we'd come back over here and we'd write an answer of 5,047. We would find it down here. We'd find the letter and we'd shade in all the letters we find in the picture. One more really quick before I skip ahead. We have 89.5461 times 1,000. So it's a multiplication problem, which tells us we're going to make the number bigger, which tells us we need to move the decimal to the right. Let's come over here to our other piece of paper, and we just said we had 89.5461 times 1,000. And if we do our little zero count, we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that tells us we are going to move the decimal 3 spaces to the right to make the number bigger. Here's our decimal. So we just go 1, 2, 3. So our decimal is there now. So we get 89546.1. And then we use our fantastic estimating or rounding skills, and we know this is approximately 89546, or 89,546. And we'd write our answer over here, and we just said we have 89,546. We'd find the answer down here in our little box, and we'd shade all the letters up here that relate to that answer. What I'd like you to do now is press pause and work on all the problems up to number 14. When you reach problem 14, come back to me and we'll do a few more problems that should help you finish the worksheet. Also, you can take a quick math break if you like and check out how this method could be used in the real world. See you in a bit. If you want to know how much this would be over the next 100 years, you would simply multiply 0.14 times 100. And since we have two zeros, all we need to do is move the decimal 2 spaces to the right, which gives us at least 14 inches over the next 100 years. Now you might not think that's a lot, but supposedly it's gonna be a doozy. Well, let's get back to the worksheet. Welcome back. We're looking at problem number 14. On problem number 14, we're not doing hundreds or tens or thousands here. We actually have a 3 here. And you might be saying, wait a second, I have a 3! What should I do? Well, all you do is divide the numbers right here by 3. Do not worry about the zeros right now. And what is 6 divided by 3? Yes, you guessed it, 2. We have 60,000 divided by 300. And I just told you, don't worry about the zeros. Just do 6 divided by 3. Well, that gives us a 2. And then I'm just going to rewrite these zeros right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if the decimal's not in sight, it's on the right, so it's right here. And as you can see, we have 1 0, 2 zeros, which tells us to move the decimal 2 spaces or 2 places to the left to make it smaller. So all we do is go 1, 2, and this equals 200. We will skip 15. Let's take a look at problem 16. Again, we have a 2 here, not a 1. So we need to take this 2, since it's multiplication, and multiply it by this number right here. Do not worry about these zeros until afterwards. Let's go to our piece of paper, and we have 231 times 200. And I'm just going to say 2 times 231. And most of you should be able to do this in your head, but I just want to show you this really quick. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we get 462. And right here, we have 1 0, 2 zeros. So we have 2 zeros, which tells us to move the decimal, which is not in sight because it's on the right, 2 spaces to the right to make the number bigger. So we're going to go 1, 2, and we just put 2 zeros in the empty spaces. So our new answer here will be 46,200. And over here, we will write 46,200, and we'll find it in our box. We find the letters or letter, and we shade it in up here. We'll do 2 more, and then I'll set you free, and I think you can do the rest of the worksheet on your own. Let's look at problem number 18. Problem number 18 says, what is 315 times 30? Well, again, we don't worry about this 0. We just take the 3 and multiply it by this number, 315, and then we worry about the 0 at the end. Let's go over to our piece of paper. We have 315, or 315, times 30, and we just take this 3 and multiply it by 315, So 3 times 3, 15. And again, I know a lot of you can do this in your head, and that's awesome. So just do it in your head, but I'm just writing it out just in case or just to show you. So 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. I get 945. And as you can see right here, I have 1 0, which tells me to move the decimal 1 space to the right. And the decimal is not in sight, so it is on the right. So it's right here. And we just move it 1 space, and I add a 0. And our answer is 9450, or 9,450. And over here, I write 9,450. All right, one more, I'll let you go. I think 22 is an awesome one for our last problem together. 9,999 divided by 30. Again, do not worry about the 0 till the end, which means I'm just going to divide 9,999 by 3. We come over to our piece of paper over here, and I'm going to write 9,999 divided by 30. But again, we don't worry about the 0 until the end. And most of you can do this in your head, and that's awesome. But I'm just going to show you really quick what I get. So I'm going to write 9999 divided by 3. And 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 times, 3 times, 3 times. Because 3 times 3 is 9, which gives us an answer of 3,333. But we have a 0 right here, which tells us to move the decimal 1 space to the left because we're dividing and we need to make the number smaller. The decimal's not in sight, it's on the right, so it's right there. So we just move the decimal 1 space to the left, which gives us 333.3. And we need to estimate or round this answer to the nearest whole number, and this is approximately 333. We come over to our worksheet, we write 333 for our answer. We find 333, which is what letter? 333 is PP. And you come up here and you look for all your PPs, not P, but PP. Okay? Well, I think I've done enough problems with you, so I think you can finish the rest of the worksheet. Good luck. I hope I helped, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.